So President Trump announced a new Cold War in his speech this week to Congress, and he got cheers, which is really scary. Take a look.
As part of our military buildup, the United States is developing a state-of-the-art missile defense system. Under my administration, we will never apologize for advancing America's interests. For example, decades ago, the United States entered into a treaty with Russia in which we agreed to limit and reduce our missile capability. While we followed the agreement and the rules to the letter, Russia repeatedly violated its terms. It's been going on for many years. That is why I announced that the United States is officially withdrawing from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, or INF Treaty. Perhaps we really have no choice. Perhaps we can negotiate a different agreement, adding China and others. Or perhaps we can't, in which case we will outspend and out-innovate all others by far.
So what he's doing there is he's announcing the end to a crowning achievement at the end of the Cold War. So when we ended the Cold War, we had this treaty with Russia, and now that's coming to an end, which means almost officially we're in a new Cold War. And I need you to stop and think about all the rhetoric that you hear on the issue of Russia today. What do you hear? Is that what you hear? Do you hear, oh my God, we're in a new Cold War, there's an escalation between the U.S. and Russia, we're really doing a lot of things where we're rolling the dice with humanity, like, for example, sending our military ships, our Navy ships to the Black Sea, which is right by Russia's border. We're building up NATO troops on Russia's border. That's something we're doing. The other thing that Trump did is he tried to axe an oil deal between Europe and Russia because he wanted Europe to make an oil deal with us instead. In the case of Venezuela, again, we're on the opposite side of Russia trying to fucking casually do an illegal coup and get our own puppet in there so we can jack oil from the biggest oil reserves in the world. So as there are like just multiple ways that we are escalating with Russia and marching to the brink of war, but really just increasing tensions in a way that's unhealthy for the entire world, all the rhetoric you hear is Trump is Putin's puppet. So let me ask people, is that what a Putin puppet would do? Would he pull out of a fucking treaty with the country that's supposed to be pulling his strings? Is that what we would do? We would have a fucking nuclear arms race with somebody who we're under the thumb of. That's not the way it works. And honestly, I know you guys are going to think this is nuts, but I literally saw articles that said, this plays right into Vladimir Putin's hands. What? It plays into Vladimir Putin's hands to have the U.S. and Russia permanently on the brink of war, escalating on a daily basis, and pulling out of the crowning achievement of the Cold War? That makes absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense. See, and this is why I get so frustrated, is because all of the Trump-Russia narrative, it ignores the actual policies towards Russia. See, for me, to increase my vulnerability on this issue, I wish we would move towards peace with Russia. I wish we would de-escalate. I wish we would stay in this treaty and make new treaties, and not do a NATO buildup on their border, not have warships right by their border in the Black Sea. So I actually would de-escalate. But Trump is in a position where, let's say he does de-escalate, obviously that means you're Putin's puppet. And even now, when Trump is escalating, he's being accused of being Putin's puppet. Pulling out of an agreement with Russia. Exactly what Vladimir Putin wants us to do. March towards the brink of nuclear annihilation. And by the way, people, Republicans and Democrats, cheering, pulling out of a crowning achievement of the Cold War. Cheering the end of the Cold War and entering a new Cold War. Which tells you what? Maybe that everybody in that room is captured by the military-industrial complex. You want to talk about collusion? How about the collusion between the military-industrial complex and U.S. politicians? That's some collusion that's proven. That's some collusion that's real as a heart attack, son. So, man, this is fucking crazy, bro. Holy shit. He announces a new Cold War, and it barely made headlines. Nobody talked about it. People were focusing on other parts of the speech. Even when he directly contradicts the Trump-Russia narrative, like he's Putin's puppet, they just don't talk about it. Or they spin it so that they say, you're doing Putin's bidding again by marching towards nuclear annihilation. It's just so stupid, and I can't take it. And understand, guys, like I've said from the beginning, I support the Mueller investigation. Mueller's going to get him on 1,000 different business things, but I think that means that the day Trump is no longer president, he will be indicted. When he's president, you can't indict him. You'd have to impeach him. I don't think he's going to get impeached, and I don't think they're going to find this grand narrative of like treason or collusion or anything like that. So I support Mueller, and I know Trump is a dirty businessman, and he's probably got ties to Russian oligarchs. But just understand that grand narrative of treason is not true, and it doesn't matter how much evidence you present in the opposite direction, people are still going to stick to it, to the point where it's now reached mania levels, where evidence that directly contradicts their theory, they still spin as proving their theory, or they just ignore it completely.